All right, Grasshoppers, she is back. Miss
Hey.
ABC Medical Writing, Ali Krug. How are you doing there, friend?
Hey, good morning, good afternoon. I'm good. How are
Very
you
good,
all,
very good.
Grasshoppers? I hope Grasshoppers are good.
Everybody's good. So just to be clear, I do this every time in case somebody has not met Ali before, but she is an epidemiologist, a lumberjack, a mother, a hockey guru in Virginia Beach. Yes, you are. Her husband
I know
served our country for 26 years.
Yeah, let's call it that.
26 years. He's a nuclear expert on submarines and ships and all that kind of stuff. Great guy. All best to him. I met Ali through Bob Pizzini, who you may have seen in the past. We've done some shows together. He's a former Navy officer as well. He was awarded the Bronze Star, I believe, too, wasn't he? Here,
I'd have to double check that, but 26 years Special Forces, and now successful entrepreneur and CEO of iFly Virginia Beach.
Yeah, and quite a speaker. I know I've said this before. When first meeting I was at, we were on the board together, this Warrior for Life Fund, and had a meeting. Must have been a year and a half ago now, down at Virginia Beach, and we had it at his iFly location. And he got up and spoke, and it was like, wow, like he's a powerful speaker, right? So, good guy.
Yeah, you know what I like about him, and what you probably enjoy about him, and what draws people like that together is, I think, a sense of optimism, self-reliance, a desire to do good in the world, and really. Not be so rose-colored glasses that we're ignorant of the challenges and the particular troubles that people have and difficulties in life. We all have them, but just like a real desire to power through them and to help others along the way as best we can.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
And you start realizing more and more the more and more you do things. That there's always a way to get it done, right? I mean, it may be tougher, maybe hard to do, but you can find a way to get it done. And he's definitely like that. You're like that too.
Yeah, well, we're surrounded by lots of great people. I mean, just the pandemic is an interesting time to get to know other people who have expertise and more knowledge. And I wouldn't have been finding myself listening to as many interesting podcasts on virology and immunology, but it's really enriched my life. And there's people who really understand T-cell mediated immunity and are helping the rest of the folks who have been so focused on antibodies to think about the fact that the immune system is really complex and very powerful. And I think there can be a lot of good if we look for it. So
definitely. Yeah, it's true. Like I've learned more and more stuff. I know we talked about this before, like learning to learn, like getting online and reading stuff and watching YouTube videos and everything. I'm really big into the intermittent fasting and all the healthy foods and everything. And I've recently found that there's a few foods. Ginger, turmeric, I can't remember what else it is. There's 4 foods that really boost the autophagy, which happens in your body when you're fasting. So before I got on the show, I'm continuing to fast now, but I took a shot of ginger and turmeric, and it's fascinating. And, it's funny because I feel like now that I realize what it's doing for my body, or what I believe it's doing for my body, it's like you don't worry about being hungry when you're fasting. It's just all healthy. So it's good.
Hey, while we're just talking about fun stuff, there's an interesting show in the UK that you might enjoy because we both love the farming life. So it's called Crawford's Farm. And like in between NHL nights, I have one chance to find one 50-minute show that I might enjoy. And I'm not very good at the iPad and scrolling through all of the 400 options to watch something, but I landed on something that mentioned, man goes into farming in the worst year possible he can imagine from the weather and then the pandemic. And then I also caught in the trailer description, it said disobedient animals. I'm like, oh, totally sold. I have to watch this.
That's cool.
So it's interesting. It's really cool. I mean, he's out there buying tractors and learning about cultivation and growing wasabi. And,
really?
It's, trying to raise chickens.
So this is a true story. This is a real life story.
Yeah, it's a real life story. I mean, he's a well-off journalist. I think his name is Andrew Crawford. I think he was covering, like race cars and motoring and that kind of thing. And then in retirement decided to go into farming. So it's enjoyable. You just look at the rain coming down and thinking about trying to like grow potatoes, and then they got to get the farm stand opened up because they had like 16 tons of potatoes they had to sell, and trying to get a farm stand built in the middle of the pouring rains. It was like the worst rain in 100 years or something. So.
You know what's funny? When I was a kid, growing up on the farm, I didn't hate being on the farm, but I appreciate it much more now. Like they're cutting the grass outside of a condominium complex now, the smell of the grass just reminded me of being on the farm where they're cutting down the hay and everything, that smell, a hot summer day. Yeah, it's cool.
It's important. I mean, you and I talk about mental health quite a bit. And over in the UK, they have a really great app called the Zoe app, and it was actually built for cancer research. And I think I might have alluded to this in a previous show, but they're also tracking COVID symptoms and all kinds of things related to pandemic response. So there's like 4 million subscribers use this little smartphone app, and they just do this like pulse to collect how you're feeling, whether it's COVID symptoms or it's mental health and what your activities are and things. And they were finding, not surprisingly, that people who were out in green space and in parks and things were less likely to have anxiety and depression. So, I mean, we know that. We know it's protective, but in Japan, that word "get out into nature" translates as forest bathing. So,
what is it again?
Forest bathing.
Forest bathing? Okay.
Forest bathing.
Forest bathing. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Forest bathing.
So immersing yourself, bathing yourself in the outdoors in the forest is so protected. There's actually like specific places in Japan that you can go to that are dedicated to forest bathing. They're like quiet but I mean, you can do it anywhere. You can go outside and weed, and just focus on the present and the here and now and, doing something tangible.
Isn't that true? Like I found during the pandemic more than before, like I love being outside. Like I've always loved being outside, but like I make a point of like, I set up my back deck and I put a TV out there so I can sit outside. Even if it was freezing cold in the winter, I was loving being outside. Like just the thought of sitting inside when I've got the option to be outside. Yeah.
I love the outdoors. I love splitting wood outside. I mean, it just takes so much focus to split wood and any time of year, but particularly in the fall, even in a drizzle, it's just nothing's better than.
That's true. Yes. So did we talk about on air? I know you sent me the video, and this is good for everybody too. We're talking about being outside. So Allie is part of the group, the Virginia Beach hockey group there. So obviously she's got her 2 sons. She brings the games and practices and all that. And very often the parents are now stuck outside waiting. And Allie, great video. Allie got everybody to now do push-ups and calisthenics and everything up in the parking lots. They just stand there waiting, right?
Not everybody, to be clear, but a few people.
That's pretty cool though. And then what was there was one, so maybe I'll say it on there. There's one woman there's a young hockey player that was on TikTok or whatever.
Yes. Doing very bad, I will say it, very bad lip syncing to 80s music. Like it's very clear he doesn't know the words, but the whole thing is just hilarious because it's taken off as so many things do on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but she sent me a link toward the end of last week. And I think it was like this one video explaining why older women are really into this. And I was just watching it like, okay.
So it's like this handsome young guy. Is that what it is?
It's like 21.
Right. So is he like handsome? Or like, is that why the women are, or is it like the whole lip syncing thing or what?
Yeah, I think it's the music. And I think it's also some of them are like, they can be watching the TikTok, but it sounds like music playing. And so people walking by, I think she's just jamming to 80s music, doesn't really know that there's video.
Okay. That's good.
So anyway, it's just one of those funny things that draws people together. And it just makes me laugh that,
Right.
And
she had to keep that during the calisthenics session with you. Didn't she have to keep that going on the trunk?
I had to. I brought the phone out and I parked it on the bumper. Yeah, so that she would she would join us because otherwise she was, very interested in kind of hanging out. And I thought she was doing work on her phone, so I'm like, maybe I shouldn't bother. She's in the car, obviously focused. And then I was like, on that phone.
And he's a young hockey player, right? Is he a hockey player? That's good.
I haven't even looked him up.
Oh.
I don't know. But, Tom, maybe you need a TikTok channel, and like lip sync some songs and things.
Yeah, I don't get it. So why, I don't get TikTok. Like, why is it separate? Like, can't you do the same thing on Facebook or Instagram?
I suppose you can, but it's probably the platform is designed specifically for that. It's probably just super, super easy. I don't know. I haven't really looked into it. I have seen other people like, I was kind of curious about the whole attraction with TikTok and the platform. And there's a guy who does marketing videos and like how to better promote your e-business. And he did all of his training via TikTok. But the thing is, I think they're very short. I think they're maybe 1 minute limit. Yeah. And so I think it's actually a really good exercise to force yourself to condense what you have to say in 1 minute. So I think it's actually a good challenge. And I have forced myself to create videos about my business because people want to meet you. They want to have a relationship with you. They want to know who you are if you're working on their research. And, maybe it's more interesting or more personable to actually hear me say what I'm going to do to your manuscript than to read this long, PDF. So I forced myself to do that. And it's extremely hard to take a thought and to really compress it. So I do think that there's benefits to it, as hokey as it sounds. I'm not there yet. I don't have enough hours to attempt a TikTok.
Yeah. I first retired from playing. I got into broadcasting for a little bit. I was starting my agent business as well, but I was doing broadcasting. It was the first year of the San Jose Sharks. Well, actually, I did some with the Kings on the radio, but the first year on TV for the San Jose Sharks, I did their color commentating. And that's one of the things there you don't realize when you're watching games all the time. It's not that it's hard, but you have to work as both the play-by-play and the color commentator to get your thought into a condensed sentence, right? You can't be telling a story there.
It's really hard. Like you have to know the number, you have to know the name, you have to know hockey well enough to understand where that play is going, and then have humor at the same time. I could never do that, Tom. I don't know how you did that.
Well, you could do it. It's just it does take practice.
I have done it actually at just as a joke at our hockey games, and the other mom and I were trying to do color commentary.
Oh,
and it sounded horrible. We'll record ourselves for you next podcast.
Oh, that's fantastic. See, I love the way you do that. You get the most out of something, right? Like you're standing outside, so instead of just standing there, you do exercise. When you're at the game, instead of just standing there, you do a play-by-play. That's fantastic. That's good.
It's terrible.
No,
but it gives me an appreciation for the true pro, right?
Yeah. Those guys are good. That's it. All right. So how are we doing? You wanted to discuss something about safety and all that kind of stuff, wasn't it, with the vaccines?
Yeah, I do. It's probably worth saying. I hate going out of my lane and saying something before the CDC does, but I am a mom. I am an epidemiologist, and I did make a personal choice for our family. And so I feel like it's only reasonable that I would share what I decided to do for our family. So this pertains to teenager vaccination, adolescent vaccination with the mRNA vaccines, which right now is Pfizer, given the EUA down to age 12. So, 12 through 17-year-olds is what I was looking at the safety data for. And, Israel has been talking about, Israel we refer to a lot because they vaccinated their population very, very quickly within like a 2-3 month span with Pfizer. And so it was a very convenient sort of population-based sample to follow through their universal coverage system. So they collect all kinds of information on testing and hospitalization and things like that through their universal payer system. It's government-funded healthcare. So it's a very good way to catch data and report it quickly. And they vaccinated everybody. So it's like a great real-world, not experiment, but real-world observational study. And so if you hear me refer back to Israel, that's why. There's a lot of data published on it and very helpful information. So they were looking at possibly some cardiac issues related to the vaccine, the mRNA vaccine, Pfizer, after dose 2, and typically within 4 days, and typically within younger males between ages 16 and 30. And they weren't really sure, how frequent it was. You have to define your denominator, which is how many people, the bottom of the fraction, how many people received the vaccine. And are we looking primarily at which age group and which sex? So that's the denominator definition. And then you have to figure out how many cases do you have in the numerator, and are they potentially related to the vaccine just by timing? So there's some rough estimates I've seen anywhere from 1 in 3,000 to 1 in 20,000. The US just published a case series on 7 patients who had myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart muscle. So they're looking at it carefully. CDC has an emergency meeting called on Thursday to take a better look at the data. But the data is wide open, accessible to citizen scientists who want to look at it. It's in the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. It's called VAERS, VAERS. And so you can pull down data and pull it into an Excel spreadsheet and look at it yourself. So what I did is I pulled down the data and looked through all of the records carefully, and I'm working with a couple other people to try to summarize what we're finding. But essentially, I think there's enough data out there from Israel and from Germany that they're moving toward recommending high-risk adolescents only. So kids who have risk for hospitalization due to comorbidities, like having obesity or asthma, just being 2 of them. There's certainly many others that a family doctor or pediatrician would recommend. So it's an important conversation to have. Hey, is my kid considered high risk? And would you recommend vaccination? Because in those circumstances, even though there might be the slight risk of a cardiac issue after vaccination, the risk of COVID is potentially more severe in those people. And so it makes sense to get vaccinated. But
just to know, Allie, just to be clear, so in those high risk categories like obesity or asthma, they should be getting the vaccine then?
I think it's really well worth having a conversation with the pediatrician. All of this is about risks and benefits, right? So it's about, there's risks to both, the risk to natural disease and there's risks to potentially to vaccination. They're rare. The risks are rare on both sides, but for some people, the balance might tip in favor of getting vaccinated because the risk of disease outweighs the rare potential risk of vaccination. And then because it's so rare, even if you don't have a comorbidity, some families might decide, hey, it just makes sense for me to get both doses of the vaccine for my adolescent because, I want my child to be able to go out and resume life and do youth sports or do a hockey camp or whatever, and not be mixed and sorted. A lot of these camps are sorting the kids by vaccine status, as far as can you go inside without a mask, or like maybe where you're bunked out with some, the other kids. They might be doing some, just to put it simply, sorting by vaccine or disease status. And that kind of makes kids feel a little self-conscious, like, well, I've had one dose, but not two. And so I'm going to go in this group, or I've had no doses, but I've had natural disease. So I think while the dust is flying all around with this data, I think, we have to use some good old fashioned common sense and, look at our family history and look at our, personal condition, and also look at what we want to do with our lives. And if it reduces anxiety to get both doses and allow the kid to just go fully back into life, knowing that they'll probably bump into COVID at some point in the next year, I think I mentioned that last week, then that's a perfectly solid choice, right? If it actually, you want kind of the best of both worlds, you want to have some exposure to the antigen before the disease, then you could do one dose of vaccine and then wait until the CDC kind of goes through all of the data and decides for which people is this actually higher risk. I think that's also a solid choice. That's what we decided to do. We got one dose, and I'm waiting on the second one.
Right. But so you had COVID. Did you just get one dose?
No, I got two, and even against my better judgment, because I was thinking, at the time when I got fully vaccinated, there really was not a lot of literature out there, and not a lot of people saying, hey, the antibodies are looking pretty good, looking pretty durable. And, I knew in my gut and I knew in my mind that my antibodies were fine, and, that my immune system is strong. But I was just feeling like if I'm recommending to other people who have not had disease yet that they should get both doses, then I should go ahead and just do the full thing, because that's what we were saying here in the US. I think there will probably be a movement to say, we're going to recognize natural immunity. We're going to just call the ball and say, if you've had COVID, like actually had COVID, where you have positive antibodies, and they can measure natural disease versus vaccine. They look at an N protein to figure out if you've had natural disease. I feel like I'm boring the grasshoppers terribly right now. No. But you can do an antibody test that figures out which you've had, and but you have to know which one to ask for. And I mean, I really think that for an otherwise healthy person who's had natural disease, they're probably going to be fine. If you're older, you have one comorbidity, you have somebody in your house who has one, then if you've had natural disease, it's not going to hurt you to get a booster, one shot. Not going to hurt you. Probably only help you. My personal position is better together. I would rather get a booster, a reminder, a little bit, 5, 6, 8 months out. That's a funny face, Tom.
I'm reading one of our listeners sent in a long question, so I want to read it first before I put it up.
Good. Okay. So I'll just finish my sentence while you're reading. So I think if you've had natural disease, I think it makes sense to get one booster, and it doesn't really matter how much time has passed between natural disease and booster. It's okay. Just maybe going into the fall and winter. Okay.
This is an interesting question. I want to hear. So Tim follows this quite a bit. I'm a 56-year-old battling stage 4 cancer. I'm on a proven immunotherapy that is working. I've seen numbers all over the place regarding the vaccine for people in my category. There's just not enough convincing data for me to get on board with any vaccine. What are your thoughts?
I would need to find out what immunotherapy is that he's working on. Does he mean immunosuppressant therapy or immune boosting therapy? I'm not really sure.
Okay.
For people who are on some kind of immunosuppressant therapy, their antibodies, it looks like maybe a little bit lower antibody response because we're giving them medications that kind of work against the immune system because we're trying to control the cancer. If it's immune, I don't know what that is, Tim. Is that immune boosting or immune suppressing? I'm not a doctor.
You're smarter. You're too smart to be a doctor. Too smart.
No, I'm not. This is just me, common sense. But I would say all of the people I've been listening to, the actual doctors whose podcasts I've been listening to every week on clinical updates, suggest that you go ahead and get vaccinated because it is not going to hurt you. Everyone around you that you're exposed to in your family and your work life, if they can get vaccinated, that will give a buffer of protection against against disease transmission. So kind of putting a fence around you by everyone else getting vaccinated, that will help. I think as far as safety, the mRNA vaccines are very good. think that when, this is one of those risk benefit situations, you do not want to get COVID. I don't know if I shared with everybody with your grasshoppers that my stepmom passed away. Okay, interesting. I don't know about that, Tim, but let me look into it and think about that for next week, okay? I do remember the name, and
Good job.
I'd like to look into that.
And Tim, keep battling there, brother. Keep battling, brother, too, all right? We're with you. Hey,
Yeah.
I do one thing. I can't remember if we covered this or not. So on a regular, like, flu vaccine, they actually give you a small dose of the flu. Is that correct?
It depends on which one. If the spray in your nose is attenuated, so it's a very small, milder version of live flu. And in the arm, if you get an injection, that is inactivated. So it's basically like killed full virus.
Right. Okay. So then your body builds up the resistance to it. Okay. Is that the same?
It builds up. Yeah.
Right. And is that the same with this vaccine for COVID?
Same idea, but different mechanism. So for COVID, what they do is they're bundling up the mRNA, which is the code for the spike protein, which is the little thing that sticks out on the virus particle. And once that mRNA goes into your cells, it gets copied using your cell's own machinery, and it makes that spike protein. That spike protein gets released from your cells. So basically, you are producing the spike protein yourself instead of just having it injected into you. And they think that may be why it's such a strong immune response, because your body is behaving more like it was actually infected by the virus, because it's using your own cell's own internal machinery to create that spike protein. So it's very immunogenic. And that's part of why we are seeing some of these, reactions that people have after dose 1 and after dose 2 with feeling like you have the flu. It's because your body is responding as if you did. It's fighting it.
Interesting. So it seems like here, like in Canada, things are opening up again now. They're starting to get their second doses, although it's been a little slow with that. Here, things are going well. And it seems like people are relaxing, even with travel. The Summer Olympics look like they're going to happen. We touched on this last week, but there's still a lot of countries that are not that far along, right? Some of the poor countries, like the Philippines or something like that, really, they get a very small percentage of their people being vaccinated, right?
Right. And the thing is right now, people are talking about Delta variant and things, and that's a new variant in the UK and stuff, and how well do the vaccines work. I was taking a solid look at that this morning because 2 studies just came out yesterday from Scotland and from Public Health England, and it's looking like the vaccines are working as intended. They're still working very, very well against the Delta variant, protecting 96% of people against hospitalization. And they're also protecting against infection and developing symptoms. But the people who are going to the hospital have had either just 1 dose or no vaccine, in some cases both doses. But in general, 2 doses of the mRNA vaccines, which is predominantly what we have here, are very protective, 96% effective against hospitalization. And that's what we want to see.
So, okay, just to be clear, going back then, and big point that you want to touch on today, then you feel with people in that age range for 12 to 17?
I'm going to say until we know more, 12 to 30, because Israel was looking at 16 to 30. They had not started vaccinating their 12 to 15-year-olds yet. So that's the data that they had. They have since, Israel and Germany have since gone to a stance of high risk 12 to 15-year-olds, recommending that they get vaccinated, but not a uniform push on everybody to get vaccinated.
All right. So to be clear, the high risk people, like people with asthma, they're overweight, they should get vaccinated, and they should get both vaccines or just one? Both doses, I'm sorry?
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like, because again, it's the risk versus the benefit. The risk of disease is still out there, especially if you're in an area where there's high transmission. Here in the US, because of vaccination being really uptake has been very good in the last few weeks. The cases are down to 16,000. I believe it translates to about 5 in 100,000. So my son and I were trying to just kind of picture what size town is 100,000. You'd have to find one of the 5 people and be in a closed environment and having conversation with that person while they were infected and infectious, really aerosolizing enough virus to get you infected. So, I'm an epidemiologist. I'm not a doctor. Doctors think about individual patients and really worry about that individual patient, like your listener, Tim, and that particular situation, because for those patients who are high risk, running into that one in 100,000, 500,000 situation would not be good. But generally speaking, for most people who are young and healthy, and in particular these adolescents, they're just not going to have the greatest odds of even catching the virus unless they're in a camp, let's just say a very busy camp, really densely crowded conditions, pulling kids from lots of cities with low vaccination rates together with no testing to begin with and no pre-camp quarantine. I'm just imagining worst case scenario, shove them all into, a hot room and, very little air conditioning, no windows open. And yes, you can get COVID in that situation. Absolutely. 100%. So
that 5 in 100,000, although you don't want anybody sick, one is too many, but that's an acceptable number, that 5 in 100,000.
I don't know. I think that we all have reframed what we consider to be acceptable. And I think that's kind of a personal call, but epidemiologists and public health people really think about, okay, we need to start creating some metrics for when life can go back to normal, because it's not all about COVID. The battle against COVID has also caused an awful lot of problems for young people who, I was just talking about this with 2 teenagers who were visiting over the weekend. 1 year in the life of a teenager is such a long time.
Yeah.
1 year in my life, I can give up. I can deal with restrictions and stuff, but I'm going to be 50 this week. That's a very different thing than the life of a teenager for 1 year. And so for them, the ones that I'm hearing on Twitter who reach out to me directly are like, gosh, when is this going to end? I'm so depressed. I don't understand. I'm making plans. And, I keep hearing people talk about restrictions. I have my DMs open on Twitter so I can hear from these young people and really hear what's making them depressed. And I really feel for them because it's different. The people making policies are like, well, we have to battle COVID down to zero or down to near zero and protect absolutely everybody. And I totally get that. But I think that sometimes policies miss the forest for the trees, and we're missing, the young person's perspective in all of this. And that is, I need life.
I'm going to go to the really extreme. A good friend of mine is Corey Hirsch. I think I mentioned to you before. He's battled some mental health issues himself. He's a courageous guy. He's out there battling all the time and helping other people and speaking about it. He texted me the other day. He'd had to go to I think they did a memorial for 2 young hockey players that had committed suicide. So, that's the extreme, obviously, but people are hurting out there. Kids, like you said, those are formative years, right? Where maybe the hockey players are dreaming of playing in the National Hockey League or seeing what they can do with their hockey careers, and all of a sudden it's taken away from them. So, I really encourage people too, right? I know you will say the same thing. That, if you're out there and you are struggling in some way mentally, don't feel like, and it's not just boys or girls or men or women. And a lot of us feel like, oh, geez, if I tell somebody I'm not doing well mentally, people are going to stigmatize me, right? But that's not the case. There's a lot of people out there that really care. And people are always suffering from things. So you're not alone in suffering, especially during
I totally appreciate it. I love these young people who, it doesn't happen a lot. I can't say I have a huge following or anything, but the 1 or 2 who have reached out and just asked for advice, it's such a joy to be able to reach back and help and be like, actually Twitter is extremely toxic. So think about what you're, putting into your mind. Think about putting constraints on it, get outside and, do as much as you can with your life. Really, life is wide open right now. There's only a few things, honestly, that are, restricted. Even the NHL has gone back, right? It's on to fans in near capacity, right? Definitely.
Yeah, totally. And social media, right, too. It's like, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well. But a lot of people post these pictures, they're on vacation, everything's beautiful, beautiful women, beautiful men, all this kind of stuff. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. But don't feel like that's their whole life all the time, and you're not as beautiful as them because you're sitting at home on the couch or whatever. You're right. First of all, get up, get outside, go for a walk, wherever it is. But that is, people are putting those pictures out there with a purpose. That's not their whole life like that, right? So,
right, and do a little parking lot workout. You will be amazed at what 10 burpees will do for your mental health. 10 burpees, they're horrible. I hate them. But you get through 10 burpees, you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. Whatever this project is, 1 hour, got it.
Well, I know you saw it, but I posted a video of me doing the kettlebell swings.
Oh yes.
They're one of those exercises that, I love doing deadlifts. I love, most guys. I love doing bench press, squats, all that stuff. Kettlebell swings, I go to do them. I go, oh God, this is gonna hurt. But they're the best. And when you're done doing it, though, you feel fantastic, right?
What weight was that, Tom?
I was a 75 pounder. That was
really?
32 kilograms. Yeah, so I looked it up. I wasn't sure. 70 pounds.
It looked like very small little ball, but maybe it's the angle.
I know. You know what's funny? It's one of those exercises. You're in the gym, you're seeing somebody else doing it, and they're sweating and grunting and groaning. You're thinking, well, what's this person doing? And then you try to do it, and you realize, well, it's good. It was good exercise.
I used to, Ben, my younger one, who's now 13, I used to do baby Ben kettlebells on the beach.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There you go.
So he was like, I don't know, at that time, he was probably 30, 40 pounds because he didn't look fat, but that kid is just packed with lead.
Well, and it's hard, at least with a kettlebell, you got a handle on it. With a child, they get a hold, it's a human being, you get a hold on it somehow. Okay, really quickly, the update on pull-ups, please.
I knew you were going to ask.
Yes.
I'm still working on them.
Okay, where you at?
So I'm trying to do these like chin-ups and pull-ups, right? I'm working on both. I can do unassisted, like no cheating jumping, one of each back to back.
Okay.
Do I get to stand on something for?
Yeah, you can to get yourself up there. Absolutely. Tim,
2 to 3 years.
I do that after eating a lot of chickpeas, Tim.
I've done burpees after like one drink. I'm a real lightweight, and it's amazing how burpees send alcohol to your head. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can get up on a stool to get yourself up. Put the stool back a little bit so you stand up, and then so your body now comes forward. Absolutely.
Okay, so how much what position should the arms be for starting? How much of a cheek do I get?
Well, the idea is that you don't have with the stool that you're not having to jump up to the bar. So that you still want to start at the bottom, right? So once you go up on the stool, get the bar, let yourself go all the way down, or go to the top.
Oh no, Tom, that's terrible. You mean full extension, arms straight out?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. That is the true. Listen, to get yourself going, just like with deadlifting, sometimes people will start on a box. They'll put the two sides of the weights on a box, so they're doing the top half of the exercise. You can do that with the pull-ups as well, but the real pull-up is all the way up and all the way down. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, real quick question: have you ever made cauliflower pizza dough?
I haven't made the dough myself, but I've tried frozen cauliflower pizza.
How did it taste?
It was good. Are you making it?
Well, yeah, I hadn't had pizza in a while, and I made that shrimp pizza my Sunday cooking show. Oh, the shrimp pizza was unbelievable.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, but then problem with the pizza is, the dough is so high. So I was at Costco today. I bought that cauliflower. It's already riced up and everything. Cauliflower. They got a little bag so you can cook it. So I'm gonna give it a try.
Sounds good. Do you have semolina to put under it so it slides into and out of your oven easily?
I have these pizza racks that are all mesh, so the air comes up underneath, so it cooks it underneath as well.
Okay.
So it works pretty good, yes. But that's great. What I'm learning. I didn't always, and I've learned to do this, is I cook my pizza dough a little bit first before I put the toppings on.
Yes.
Or else it gets all gooey, yes.
Yeah, that's smart. I used to cook pizza on a barbecue. I have my own wild yeast starter, and I love to work with it because I like to just, I don't know, do things the weird, nerdy way. But you can catch wild yeast from the air if you mix water into your flour and leave it out on your counter. Wild yeast that's floating around in the air will jump into your flour. And actually, the real truth is it's in your flour to begin with. There's like wild yeast everywhere. But it will get the natural flora from within your own kitchen, wherever you live, and will start to, it takes a little while. It takes about 7 days. And you start to see it.
That's what you're saying. You're trying to catch wild geese.
Yes. Wild goose starter, Tom. Yes, it's something new. Starting something new. No, wild yeast. And so you can make your own wild yeast like sourdough starter. And then you just have to feed it. If you're keeping it out on your counter, especially in the summer, it's going to metabolize through your flour pretty quick. So you have to feed it pretty often. I've been too busy lately, so I've been keeping it in the fridge. So I should probably feed it. It's been a couple months. Cool. But if you keep it in the fridge, you have to pull it out like the night before, get it warm, feed it again. And then you can make pizza dough with that too. Right. That's fun.
I had been using a pizza stone before, but I had it in my barbecue, but it kept breaking all the time. I don't know if because I left it on there, it was going hot, cold, hot, cold.
That's weird. Maybe.
Yeah. I was buying.
You left it outside.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably it. I just left it right in the barbecue. I probably should have brought it inside, but I didn't find, I find this, what I use in the oven with the mesh pizza tray works pretty good because it's the same concept, right? The stone is supposed to take the moisture out of the pizza. It's the same thing with that.
Yeah. I want to build like a fire pit outside, like a pizza brick oven pizza thing.
Yeah. Ooh, that'd be nice. That'd be really nice. Definitely. All right there, friend. Again, Allie Krug from Virginia Beach. ABC Medical Writing is her company, and you can find her, and you have the website, abcmedicalwriting.com, correct?
Yeah. And Tim, if Tim wants to reach out, just go to Krug, AKRUG, at abcmedicalwriting.com. And I love a good research project. So I will see what I can find out. But basically, those T cells, if this Opdivo is encouraging your T cells to go to bat for you, that sounds pretty cool. So I'm curious to see.
And Tim, keep the burping going after a few beers too. I'm sure your significant other is really happy with that. Sitting around burping after beer.
Maybe that should be a TikTok video.
Oh God, what's funny? My sons are grown now, are 28, 30, so they're like my buddies now too. So and they both have their girl. One's married, one has a girlfriend. So I'll come over and it shows that the girls are pretty comfortable with us. So we'll have something to eat and a few cocktails and everything, and the gas gets going a little bit, so it gets pretty nasty in the room together. So.
Remember, I've been talking about ventilation quite a lot. There's many good reasons for ventilation.
Definitely. When it's nice, we sit outside, so there's natural ventilation. So it's good. Yeah. All right, Tim, keep going, bud. Keep going. Allie, great to see you again. We'll see you next week.
Great to see you too.